And welcome everyone to your Civil War Fallout breakdown. I guess kind of a vodcast podcast type thing. Not an official podcast, but Civil War, obviously one of the biggest events in the EWA and a lot of people's favorite events. And for good reason. Royal Rumbles are always fun because there's usually something crazy happening in them and there's always all kinds of action. And you never know who's going to come out on top this year. Certainly one of those years where a number of participants could have won the matchup. Jamie Noble coming out on top. Oops, spoilers if you haven't read the results already. But with Jamie Noble coming out on top, a little bit of a surprise for some. But if anyone read his work, you know that not really that big of a surprise. But that's part of the Civil War yearly, I guess, tradition is just surprise entrants and returns and just everyone competing and going all out and trying to put yourself in a position to where you can wind up becoming the winner, and that's what our two winners of the Civil War did. I'm here with John. John and I are going to break down the Women's Civil War first, and then we're going to break down the Men's Civil War as we prepare for the fallout going forward on Slam into the month of May. John, how you doing tonight?
Not too bad, not too bad. Yourself?
Schwing.
That good, eh?
Yeah, that good. John telling me before we started recording here about his affinity for the Wayne's World movies. He likes both of them, Wayne's World 1 and 2, says they both hold up today. And, you know, there's a lot of American culture references in that one. Do some of those fall on deaf ears to British and foreign viewers, or am I just naive in thinking that might happen?
But there's a few things that you kind of don't really pick up, but then they're the kind of pop culture references that pop up in other things as well, like The Simpsons and everything else. So you kind of pick it up by osmosis, I guess.
And the one thing I've picked up from John by osmosis is the love of stats, and stats are a big part of the Civil War match. Entry order, elimination order, total number of eliminations, and then you have historical markers being passed up as well as all-time numbers changing. And John and I are set to go over some of the stories and stats that have come out of both Civil War matches. We're going to start out with the Women's Civil War match, and first off, let me get this popped up here and take a look at the women's entry order for Civil War and go over how this played out. 20 women entering the match here, John. First two in were Momo Watanabe and Becky Lynch into this one.
Indeed, yeah. I'm impressed that you managed to pronounce her name pretty much spot on there as well.
I do a lot of practicing before these things. The Human Torch took out a bank loan. Like lots of vocal warm-ups, John, to get myself ready to say Momo Watanabe. And I don't think any of the other names on here are too difficult. La Hydra. That's not bad, right?
Yeah. That sounds pretty good.
So we had Momo and Becky Lynch started out, and then we had Scarlett Bordeaux, Nikki Cross, and Lacey Evans as the first five in. Kind of want to go over maybe what happened here at the start of this Civil War matchup, John.
Well, it was an interesting start to the match because there wasn't a lot of eliminations for the first, sizable chunk of it. So you had like Momo and Becky starting things off, and then Scarlett kind of coming in as this sort of unknown factor, really, because it was interesting because I was speaking to Ed before the end of the week last week that did he intend to include Scarlett Bordeaux in the match, or if he was just concentrating on Killer Cross being in the men's Civil War. So it was interesting to see Scarlett get in the mix here as well, and I thought she looked pretty decent, like in the results. She didn't get a elimination of her own, but she was part of the big sort of joint elimination of Awesome Kong that happened a bit later on.
Yeah, that wound up taking 10 participants to take out Awesome Kong, I believe, in that one.
Yeah, which was, I don't know about you, but I really enjoyed that whole spot because it was a nice bit of kind of connective tissue to the first Women's Civil War match way back in 2012, which Awesome Kong won. So having...
Go ahead.
I was just going to say, having Kong make this cameo appearance was just a nice throwback to that, and then it treated her with respect as well by having everyone sort of having to join forces just to get rid of her.
I was just taking a look at my stats that I have up here. Obviously, you can't see them, John, but I went through, I double-checked, I triple-checked these stats. I literally copied them right from the document that you sent me, and I've totally left Awesome Kong off the women's entry order list. It goes from 10 to 12, from Kelly Klein to La Hydra. Coming in at number 7, though, is someone that I want to talk about, and that's Daizee Haze. She had a pretty good run in the match, making it till pretty late, next to last woman thrown out. But she came in early on, number 7, had a really good run in it. Didn't wind up picking up the victory, but a good turnout for Daizee Haze.
Absolutely. I think it definitely reflected on her on Shell's work last week that she was, I believe, the person who lasted the longest in the match overall. And she also got like a couple of, big eliminations along the way as well. Taking out Nydia at one point, and who else was there? Charlotte Flair as well, which was obviously a huge scalp right there. So yeah, she had a really good showing, and then to get to that sort of final 3 where she was mixing it up with Aaliyah again, who, they've had a bit of history stemming back to Aaliyah's first match, where it was a triple threat match between them and Hana Kimura, which resulted in Aaliyah sort of stealing the win, if you want to phrase it that way. But so there's a bit of beef there and a bit of history. And yeah, it was just a good showing overall for Daizee Haze.
Yeah, like you said, without timestamps put on there by New, you don't really know exactly how long they stay in there. I thought about like putting those on, but then I thought New may not like that, because then we're going off, and I have to go back and do it for 10 to 20 of years worth of Civil Wars in the past and stuff, So I held off on giving my creative freedom and liberties to the match right there. But yeah, definitely looked like she stayed in the match the longest, and like you said, picking up an elimination over Charlotte Flair, who had a real good run in the match herself. She's actually our next talking point up right here. Noah making a comeback into the EWA, and I guess I shouldn't call it a comeback per se, because he never really left, but things with Harper just kind of fell apart at the end for him, and it just seemed like he was gone mentally, maybe. So to have it be called a comeback, maybe that is accurate for him to be considered a comeback, and now here in the EWA in the women's Civil War match with Charlotte Flair. And he had a really good run himself, racking up, I believe, the most eliminations. We'll get to the women's eliminations totals here later on, but coming in at 13 and kind of dominating with the ring filling up with women. Charlotte was the one who took care of most of the elimination work.
Yeah, certainly. But I think it's also worth pointing out that Lacey Evans was also like heavily in the mix as well.
Very
and
much.
I think she got like a fair few eliminations herself along the way.
Yeah, she had 3.
And it was a good sort of theme as part of the match as well, that like Evans and Flair together as the Dominion were kind of the standard bearers. They were the women to beat, and they were the ones who were kind of teaming up and constantly looking out for one another, as well as taking out the rest of the competition. So when Lacey finally did get eliminated, it was interesting that Charlotte Flair sort of struck up this temporary alliance with Toni Storm as well for a little bit, at least until she basically tried turning on Toni Storm and trying to dump her, which I guess is what you're supposed to do in this match. Is every woman for herself.
Yeah,
so
every person for themselves in this kind of matchup. And we've seen situations in the past of partners turning on each other. Not as common in the Civil War match as much as it is the Royal Rumble, but yeah, Lacey, and I meant to mention Lacey, so I apologize, Noah, if you're listening to this, but Lacey and Charlotte, kind of a dominant force throughout the middle part towards the end of the women's Civil War match, until eventually, like you said, being eliminated by Daizee Haze. So a huge elimination for Daizee before getting dumped out herself towards the end by our next talking point, if you're ready to move on, John.
Yeah,
is to whoops, I'm sorry, there's a picture of Judy Bagwell on the screen, so I thought we were moving on to Toni Storm, but Judy Bagwell, what a run for Rude Jude in the women's Civil War match, picking up a huge elimination, eliminating Mandy Rose from MJF's group, and I thought I thought it was some of Judy's best work, John.
Yeah, I mean, it was definitely better than her appearance in the men's Civil War match a couple of years ago. So
yeah, tough
but,
elimination for Jude in that one a couple of years ago.
Yeah, wasn't it Buff himself who knocked her out?
That's not important, John. You're just trying to stir the pot, and I don't appreciate it. But now we'll move on to the next talking point from the Women's Civil War. Toni Storm, who probably had the biggest story heading into the Women's Civil War match. Her back and forth with General Manager Harry Smith about her contract coming into the match was kind of the big story coming in, and she had perhaps the most to gain and the most to lose in this matchup, as it was for the women's title, a vacant women's title. But coming in with that kind of story and momentum, Toni was really going to have to bring it. And, she came in, at the very end on the field, number 20, had the last entry spot, but wound up finishing, runner-up in the whole thing, and a very highly contested ending there.
Yeah, and I thought that was perhaps like the one of the most interesting stories as well, coming into it and coming out of the Civil War, is that Toni Storm, she's been kind of a heel in the last few weeks, where she's she wants to do as little as possible and coast by and show up whenever she wants and get paid lots of money, but then with her contract expiring and the EWA not really willing to offer those same terms anymore, she was faced with this choice of, do I want to continue coasting by, or do I want to kind of step up to the plate and start trying to live up to my potential? So that sort of inspired her to not only sign a contract with the EWA, a brand new contract, but to then immediately put it up for grabs by saying, if I don't win this match, I want to be fired because I don't deserve a job here. So putting all that extra pressure on herself, coming into coming in at number 20, the last entrant, obviously made for a good story right down the stretch, especially as it came down to her and Aaliyah right at the end.
Yeah, and coming up short, like we said, Aaliyah winds up picking up the victory and eventually becoming the women's world champion in the EWA. A different set of role plays from Aaliyah over the course of her week. Very straightforward promo cutting instead of the overarching story, which you tend to find more in these Civil War settings. And, we'll get to Jamie Noble, obviously, but his were very story-centric and didn't really mention anybody else. But Aaliyah taking a very different approach, a very direct approach towards the competition, and it winds up working out in her favor, and she gets, obviously, a huge win here and gets the world championship, the women's title for the EWA.
Absolutely. And like you say, it was a very sort of promo-based route that Aaliyah went with those role plays as well. But then they were so unique. They weren't like the same promo each time, which
right, it's hard to do.
Really hard to do, especially in a match like this where the temptation is especially just to do a sort of tick box exercise, mentioning each person in the match and giving them a paragraph of trash talk each or something. But she didn't do that. She still managed to mention opponents, but weave it into just Aaliyah's established egocentric personality and talking about herself and stuff as well. So it was a really, really well done job, I thought. I was really impressed by her work this week.
Yeah, and like I said, she winds up getting the huge victory, and she's our EWA Women's Champion now. You can see the elimination order on the screen. As the ring started to fill up, there were some rather large discrepancies between some people's entry number and their exit number. Really not huge discrepancies in the men's match so much. A few outliers, but in the women's match you can see some people who had early entries wound up hanging around and making it further than most others, but pretty much by the books. And Newt ran this one like he has very often in the past, where later entries were given more headway towards being in there towards the end.
Mm-hmm. I'd say with the one exception really being JoJo, who kind of came in and she was a bit like a house on fire, coming in and trying to get the hot start, but then running into the Dominion, and that kind of softened her up for a quick elimination at Carmella's hands as well.
Yeah, winds up falling short there, but a good showings from Asuka and as we mentioned already, Daisy Hayes. Those people had rather lengthy stays in the match as far as when they entered. I'd say I might throw Lacey Evans in there as well.
Yeah, for sure. And speaking of Asuka as well, like I'm still really intrigued to find out what her role plays were like. Hopefully those get posted at some point in the near future, because I mean, it's always interesting when you have people show up in a match and post secret role plays, and because is it like an unfair advantage, do you think, if you can see what everyone else is doing but they can't see what you're doing?
Well, you have to take a look at the situation like Aaliyah, where you're not cutting promos on the specific members in the match, but you're cutting straight promos and cutting down your opponents. And if you don't even know who your opponents are, if you're taking all the right boxes and you're going, I'm going to take down Charlotte Flair for this reason, I'm going to take down Daisy Hayes and Lacey Evans for this reason, but you don't know that Asuka's even in the match and doing that, you don't have the opportunity to, one, reply to things that she may have said in her role play, and two, just even mention her straight up, unless you're taking a shot in the dark. And even then, that seems a bit ridiculous to even try and do that.
Yeah, definitely.
So I'm not against secret role plays. I think they help spice things up, and you like to see the secret entrance into a match like this coming out of the woodwork. It's a matter of getting them to stay after that has been issues in the past, and like you said with Asuka, I hope it's something that we see her continue forward, but without her posting her secret role plays from the Civil War match. It's not off to a great start so far.
I guess not, no.
But we'll see. Like you said, I mean, they could get posted and she could pick up a match going forward, and you never know. But when the Women's Civil War match was announced last month, it was at a time when I'd say the EWA was not bustling with women participants, but they had the 5-person match at the last pay-per-view that parlayed.
Oh, it was a 6-person.
Oh, 6-person, excuse me. Yeah, so yeah, at least at that time you had 6 active participants, but to parlay that into 20, and while not all were active, and while not all role played, like they were women who have been involved, albeit mostly recently, with the EWA, it says enough for the division itself to carry a match of that stature. And it was a well-written and highly competitive match, and it certainly had a number of competitors who could have won that match. And that's not just me giving the locker room coach talk. Like, there were some really great role plays posted, and the top, you see the elimination list here, of the top 4 or 5 people there, none of those would have surprised me if they would have come out on top in this.
Absolutely, yeah, I couldn't agree more. It was, just reading the role plays last week, it was tough to separate a lot of people, really, but it does make you glad that it's Newt who has to make these decisions and not any of us, really.
Yeah.
It's got to be tough.
Well, that's not an easy one to. I mean, these are never easy, and I'm sure Newt is going to say that too, that they're not easy to judge. So, kudos to Aaliyah, and kudos to a lot of the women that told some great stories over the course of a week, and were made that match as competitive as it was. Moving on to the men's match, we have the entry order up here on the screen. We started out with Braun Strowman and Big E. Big E took a trip to Gettysburg, and that's the last we heard of Big E. Braun Strowman actually sold his spot. Braun Strowman won the final entry spot into Civil War at the Super Bowl free-for-all, sold that spot to Bo Dallas for $20,000. And then Braun Strowman had the unlucky fortune of drawing number 1 So it went from number 40 to number 1. That's kind of depressing. Not the first time Braun Strowman has actually drawn number 1. Actually eliminated a few years ago by Jack Gallagher, who came out number 2. So Braun Strowman familiar with this spot, kind of like Elias has been in the WWE the last few years, coming out this early and stuff. But the ring, it was kind of a weird situation where the first 7 came out and they were in the ring and a couple eliminations happened, and then everyone kind of got eliminated right off the bat. And for the first time in Civil War history, the ring was cleared as everyone eliminated themselves, and there was no one in the ring after number 7 for a bit.
Yeah, it's definitely a first time ever. It basically restarted the match from number 8 onwards. So yeah, it was well, I made for a good kind of unique moment that we've never seen before, but also provided like a little opportunity to cut away and catch up with Tony Storm as well. So like it wasn't just like dead air or whatever you want to call it. There was still something going on to kind of fill the time. So, but yeah, interesting choice, and I think it paid off. It basically, it kind of split the match not in half, but into like a different section.
Yeah, it turned it into a 32-man Rumble pretty much after that.
Yeah.
The ring did, at times, I wanted to make a diagram of who was in the ring at once, but when the ring really started to fill up, I kind of wound up losing. I mean, not that I lost track myself. It just became difficult to track at one point, and then to present that in a way to you guys that would be easy to follow, it was a bit of a headache, so I decided to forego that, because it really was like I had all these charts and everything, and I was like, this isn't going to be presented in the way I want it to be. So after 7, the ring emptied, but the ring really filled up as time went on, and we saw instances in the men's Civil War match where there were 11, 12, even I think up to 1 point 14 or 15 people in the ring at one time.
Yeah, I counted up to 13 at one point, until Goldberg got rid of Alex Hammerstone. But yeah, again, that makes it stand out from the women's Civil War as well, where you didn't really have that so much, where there was a lot more sort of, quick eliminations after the first 7 or 8 people had come out in that match. So, it's because like you think about writing 2 Civil War matches, you want to make them stand out from each other and not end up, repeating yourself or anything like that. So, again, just like the whole clearing the ring aspect of it earlier, it was all about, making sure these 2 Civil War matches stand on their own 2 feet and, and don't end up being a bit too,
Yeah, similar. I get what you're trying to say there. Much like Asuka, but without the secret role plays, Kurt Hawkins came in at number 27. Ring was full of a lot of people at that time. Corey, obviously, we've talked about it in the feedback, making his debut with this wrestler at a Civil War match, and it's hard to do something like that and be effective with it. I think I know I have on multiple times tried to debut a new character at Civil War to little fanfare and as much as we could get out of it, but it's still not getting a ton. Probably one of the more effective and successful Civil War debuts we've seen in a long time. Kurt Hawkins cleaned house in the match, tied for most eliminations, and really was there until around the end where he had a chance, John.
Absolutely, yeah. It was again, it was like a good story from Corey, which is what you'd expect from Corey anyway, but like setting up Hawkins as the guy who technically wasn't really supposed to be in the match to begin with. He was pretty much offered a spot as, someone to help make up the numbers, and not really expected to make much of the opportunity other than to, get in there and then get eliminated quickly so the stars could go on and do their thing. So for Kurt Hawkins to come in, especially the way he did as well when he entered the match, like right after Goldberg was on this huge tear where he'd taken out Hammerstone, both both members of Tokyo Vice, and then Trent Beretta as well, before getting eliminated by Hawkins. So that just kind of set the tone really, and he just kept building and building, and from there, like, you can imagine if this was a real life match, Kurt Hawkins surviving against the odds and then taking scalps like Goldberg and Killer Cross and Sammy Guevara as well. Like, it just, you can imagine it builds him up, and I think he's coming out of this Civil War looking like a hell of a character right now.
Yeah, big time eliminations for Hawkins, and a great story, like you said, told over the course of a week, and certainly gives him something to move forward with. Speaking of stories that took place throughout the week, Corey had his hand in this cookie jar a little bit, but coming in at number 20, the midpoint of the men's Civil War match was Ellen DeGeneres. And Ellen's had her hands full with the Shining Colognes, and now the Best Friends, most notably. And Ellen coming in and picking up 2 huge eliminations, eliminating Primo and Epico. We've seen celebrities in the past have some measure of success, most notably Kermit the Frog. But Ellen, this might be near the top of all-time celebrity, the top of the celebrity elimination totals list, right?
Yeah, I think so. We've only had like a handful of celebrities involved in the Civil War match over the years. Like we've had Brendan Fraser back in 2013, back when he was The Rock's best friend. But I'm pretty sure he didn't really chalk up too many eliminations, if any at all. But Dennis Franz, when he dressed up as the Blue Meanie, definitely scored one back in 2015. And then we had Liam Gallagher last year, I believe it was, or possibly the year before, in fact. So we've had some celebrity appearances, but Ellen by far is the most successful.
The most successful celebrity in Civil War history, Ellen DeGeneres, and going to be real interesting, John, to see this one, how it plays out. Maybe Ellen goes for Sammy Guevara's national title next. I'm not sure, but I'm sure that the Shining Colognes will want to get some measure of revenge on Ellen.
Yeah, I would have thought so. But you can never really predict what's going to happen in those role plays, so...
And why would you want to?
Exactly.
Just let it happen. Or just don't read it like I do. Just kidding. No, but yeah, crazy stuff, and I laughed when Ellen came out, and I thought that was pretty well done on Newt's part there.
Yeah, I got to be honest, my money was on her coming out in the women's Civil War match.
Same here. But this was a nice touch. So coming out after Ellen, though, and kind of cleaning up the mess in a match, like you said, was William Goldberg. And Goldberg, he winds up coming in, and Josh doing some of his best work in a while with a character, and kind of hits a stride with Goldberg, and Goldberg ties for most eliminations in the match. Like you said, eliminates Tokyo Vice and takes out Hammerstone and Trent. And he cleaned house. The ring was starting to fill up with beef, and Goldberg came in and just kind of cleaned out the ring and got us down to a manageable number again, to where it was easy to keep track of.
Yeah, and it was sort of on brand for Goldberg as well, like a short, sharp kind of burst of, offensive, taking out everyone, really. And then it all, like, comes to an end really quickly when Kurt Hawkins, leapfrogs his attempt at a spear and sends him flying out the ring.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
But, if we've seen it once, we've seen it a million times. Goldberg go flying over the top rope trying to do a spear.
Oh, yeah.
No, it was a good elimination, and, you had to keep it in a sense where, Goldberg getting eliminated but not manhandled and overpowered, but kind of almost outsmarted by Hawkins was a nice touch. And they have a little bit of stuff coming out of the Civil War, and we'll talk about potential feuds going forward. But Hawkins Goldberg, definitely something I might keep my eye on as we move forward.
Yeah, for sure.
After Goldberg left the ring, the most dominating presence, aside from Kurt Hawkins, though, was Prince Albert. And Prince, a part of the Community Cleave Project, and like I said in the feedback, the Community Cleave Project started initially as a way just to help keep EWA active with a more full roster, but it's kind of blossomed into this own thing where he has found just a measure of success with many different characters. We saw earlier in the evening Ming get eliminated by the rest of the Community Cleave character, basically stable as they come down to the ring and eliminate Ming. But Prince Albert, who is coming off an EWA World Heavyweight Championship where he came up short an opportunity, but Cleve went all out in this Civil War. And you know, I talk about guys like Hawkins having a chance. I mean, Prince Albert was right there near the end as well, and it certainly wouldn't have surprised me if he was the last one standing in this, coming up just short in that one though.
Yeah, I mean, it's a testament to Cleve's work last week, I think. The fact that he role-played so many times with so many different characters, but, like, gave each different one, like, its own voice, its own story, and made them all stand apart from each other. I mean, to do all of that in the space of, what, like 6 days we had to role-play, it's just insane. And my hat eternally goes off to Cleve, because I'm constantly blown away by just how good of a writer he is, and not just how good of a writer he is, but how like quickly and he can like crank this stuff out and keep it at such a high quality as well.
Yeah, indeed, and you see it across a litany of characters, and you know he's done it with Bubba Dudley and guys like Prince Albert and others for years now. You know, dating back to his Kevin Nash days and everyone else. You know, we could wax poetic talking about how good of a writer he is through all these guys, but you kind of see it in the results. It's a shame that he didn't get as good of a run in this as he did, but at the same time, you know, you look at Honky Tonk Man, who came in at 21, got eliminated at 31, Prince Albert eliminated at 37. You know, these are guys that stayed in there for quite a while. Rhino out at 32, so he had 3 of the last 10 guys in the ring, which should tell you something. Well, actually, yeah, 3 of the last 10 that were in the ring were Cleve guys. So that should be a testament to his writing in a nutshell right there.
Oh yeah, 100%.
So big moves there for Prince Albert, and he's someone that if Cleve wanted to pursue it on a more serious level, could be having a measure of success in the very near future with him. Maxwell Jacob Friedman, the EWA World Heavyweight Champion, no clear-cut feud coming out of the last pay-per-view, and picking up a rematch victory over Harper. He decides to enter the Civil War match, winds up coming into the match at number 39, or excuse me, number 37, eliminated at 39. So it comes in at 37, had a very late entry in that, winds up thinking that he wins the Civil War match, only to be eliminated by the eventual winner. But MJF and Jared's work, he's clicking on a very high level right now, and you know you're seeing it here. And I know in the feedback there was some talk about why MJF was there, but at the same time, like when someone's posting really great work, you can't just not acknowledge it, and you can't, you know, hold them back from continuing to do that. And that's just kind of what Jared's doing. And you know, I wasn't shocked to see MJF there towards the end, and I wouldn't have been shocked to see him win and then try and have a story coming out of that.
Well, yeah, I mean, first of all, it's to Jared's credit to volunteer MJF for the match once he realized there were no like obvious challengers for the title, because it shows he's actively looking to keep MJF involved in storylines and put him in situations where he can hopefully have storyline spin-off out of it as well. So it was, a really good move. And even though I'd say just from the like balance of the role plays, like the fact it was just, there's one from MJF's point of view, one from Mandy Rose's, and I believe the other was from Holiday and Hammerstone. So it was kind of he wasn't going all out to win the match, I don't think, but again, it was just sort of like what we've done with some of our characters, just like throwing MJF into the match to help make up the numbers and you know, like I say, hopefully spin off a storyline coming out of it, which you'd look at the result and I'd say it definitely was mission accomplished there.
Yeah, and the result was Jamie Noble coming up with the victory. You have to say, Jamie Noble, a character newer to the EWA, probably the quickest or shortest debut to Civil War victory that we've seen in the EWA in quite some time. I harken back to Marty Scurll's victory, and that was 7 months, and that was still probably a rather low number as far as Civil War victories go. But Jamie Noble has been here for the course of 5-6 weeks with this character, and winds up coming up victorious in this one. Coming in at number 8, the third lowest entry number for a winner in Civil War. And you look at something like that, and Newt in the past has kind of given the winners the later entry spots. We'll take a look at men's entry spots and their victories, but for Noble to come in at 8 and last through the whole match, I think I saw the match was 1 hour and 42 minutes long. Okay, so if Noble comes in at 8, then he's in at 16 minutes, 18 minutes, and survives 1 hour and a half, survives almost 90 minutes in this match.
Yeah, it's pretty insane when you think about it, really. But it's totally deserved as well, because I'm a huge fan of Jeff's work last week, not just with Jamie Noble and Nydia, but with Bo Dallas as well. And I got to work with him a little bit last week, and it was a real pleasure to do that. But yeah, I mean, it's a testament as well to the fact that we've had criticisms in the past of the EWA being some sort of old boys club, which is bullshit, and this goes to prove that with Jeff coming in and winning the men's Civil War, Nat coming in and winning the women's Civil War. It just goes to show it doesn't matter how long you've been here, what you've done in the past in the EWA, as long as you come in and crank out the good stuff, you're going to get your just rewards from it. So yeah,
I agree. And I think this win was totally deserved by Noble. If you read his work and you saw the journey that he sent Jamie on throughout the week, while it had a measure of humor in it, and it was really humorous, it was also just a well-told story of someone who lost someone they love and would do anything that they could to get them back, and it winds up being this hilarious journey that he goes on, but he realizes in the end what he has to do to get her back. And it was just a really well told story. It was grounded in reality and not too far-fetched, but it was also whimsical enough to make you laugh as you're reading it. So I was just really impressed and thought that it was a really well done story from him.
Yeah, for sure.
Want to give shout out to a few more people that were in the match. Eita, is it Eita? Anyways, yeah, he came in early. He wound up having a really good run in the match. Wound up with 2 eliminations himself, including an elimination of the former TV champion Jacob Fatu, or at least was in on that elimination. But he was someone who had an early entry, but wound up sticking through the match quite a long time. Looked like he was going to be eliminated a few times throughout, but wound up saving himself, and he had a really good showing, as did the Dogs of War, who both were in on the Braun Strowman elimination right before the 8th entry came in. But Jack Stane and I'm forgetting who the other one is.
James Storm.
Yeah, James Storm. And Dax James picking up a elimination over Tyler Breeze as well. So a good showing for those guys here early on. And let's see, there was one more I was going to touch on. Obviously, Dylan with Al Snow, all-time record holder for eliminations, but to come in and just consistently be in that situation, eliminating Jerry Lawler and Prince Albert, and those are two guys who went the full length of role plays with 3 themselves. So it's not like Dylan was just out here eliminating, people, filler people or anything like that. So, I just want to give some credit to those guys as well. I could give it to you, John, but you got to get tired of hearing it at some point, right?
Yeah. I don't need any more pats on the back.
So yeah, I thought that was really good showing. Eita came in, and the first thing he said whenever he got here is, "We can do anything we want in role plays, right?" Which is like a huge red flag whenever you see someone say that. So for him to come in and not be like out there and like crazy with this stuff was a good thing, or at least from my point of view, because I was like, oh, okay, like he's not gonna like murder someone or anything in his writing. So yeah, I thought it was a real good run for those guys in the match. Anyone else you wanted to touch on while we're here?
I was just going to say Killer Kross was someone who stuck out a lot. I thought, like I said on the Hashpipe report, I thought Ed did a really good job with that first role play. And then when he got the second one up as well, I thought, wow, he's really in for a shot here. But it's just, it's unfortunate that real life sometimes pops up and, he couldn't get that third role play up in time. So, I guess part of it is you wonder what could have been in that case, but the fact that he was still in there, and Kross had a good showing as well. Like he looked really dominant in the match, and I think he even eliminated Rhino as well, the new TV champion. So and they kind of started brawling after Kross got eliminated shortly after, thanks to Rhino's involvement. So he kind of suggests that there could be a potential TV title match there down the line. So hopefully Ed can kind of build off this and, make something good happen from it as well.
Yeah, I hope he's able to follow up off that, because follow-up's a big deal, especially coming out of a pay-per-view like this. So hopefully he's able to do that after a good showing and eliminating a TV champion. So there's definitely stuff to build off of there.
Yeah.
Let's move on to the next stat page. Whoa. Whoops. That's not what we're doing. I clicked the wrong thing, John. I'm sorry. Which is men's all-time eliminations leader, Al Snow, with 2 more eliminations in this one, moving him up to 27 all-time, 4 past Brock Lesnar now. And then there is a wide gap between those guys down to Eddie Kingston, Jake Roberts, and Ken Anderson. So Al Snow, that's... Unless someone comes in and just has a really dominant year, it's going to be tough to chase him down.
Yeah, especially seeing as even prison can't stop him from coming back to score more eliminations.
We're going to have to find something in the next year that will be able to keep Al Snow away that's not prison. My guess is just a Nintendo GameCube and a TV, but we'll see. We'll see. Next up on the stats, we have most eliminations by a Civil War winner in 2018. Brock Lesnar chased down Al Snow by eliminating 12 people. Ken Anderson and Tommy Dreamer both with 6. Steve Corino, The Rock, and William Regal 5, 4, and 4. I think this was just added to throw some salt at Craig, who can see his 2 victories down at the very bottom of the list. As Cody Rhodes and Marty Scurll both had 1 elimination in their matchup to pick up their Civil War victories. But as you can see, sometimes the winner doesn't get a ton of eliminations. Just this year, Jamie Noble picking up only 2, obviously one of those being the very last person in the match, MJF, the other one being Ellen DeGeneres. So Jamie Noble not really dominant in the match per se, elimination wise, but still managed to get 2 and got the most important one. That's what matters.
Yeah, for sure.
Santino Marella with 3 in 2017. Do you remember who you eliminated?
I don't off the top of my head, but I can tell you after about 5 seconds of looking it up, it was Big Show, Kane, and Bully Ray.
Oh, wow. That's a big-time eliminations for you then. Marty Scurll eliminated Fit Finlay last year, and in 2015, Cody Rhodes, on the edge of the apron, eliminated Diamond Dallas Page to pick up that victory.
Nice.
That much I can remember. Next up stat, I believe, is going to be most eliminations in that given year. There you see 2004. It really by year 5, 6, 7. And then you get down to Hawkins, Goldberg, both with 4 this most recent year to be number 1. Strowman and Prince Puma Both had 5 last year. Brock Lesnar on here twice, 2016 and 2018, 8 and 12 respectively. And then, there are some years where there aren't many. DDP, Mr. Anderson, Mordecai, and Samoa Joe all with 3. And then there are years like Brock Lesnar in 2018 where the winner is the dominant one with 12.
Yeah, well, again, it kind of plays into the fact that, Civil War seems to be a different size almost every year as well. We've had, matches with as few as 19 people in and then as big as 60. So, well, the majority of the matches have 30 participants. These last 2 years have had 40, but we've also had 45 and 35 and 25. And, so I'm sure that plays into the number of eliminations as well.
Indeed so. Next one on the list is the men's winning entry number. And as you can see on here, not a lot of early entries. William Regal winning with the 60th entry spot in 2009. You remember that year, John? 60 people in the match?
Yeah, that was the crazy year where I think about 4 people actually role played for it. So Newt kind of went all out to make it as big and special as possible, but he was doing it in the most kind of comical way. So it just, I don't know if you can go back and read it, but it's definitely worth checking out just for the shenanigans in that match.
Jimmy Noble coming out 8th in this one. Last year, Marty Scurll coming out 40 out of 40. This year, Jamie Noble 8th out of 40. And winds up picking up the victory in this one. And there you can see it. Not the lowest of numbers. Lesnar came in at 6. Steve Corino at 7. And Tommy Dreamer, while he tied for it in 2007, came in at 4. So actually the 4th lowest number for Jamie Noble, not the 3rd. As I said earlier, I actually missed Brock Lesnar in 2018. But like you said, the number of people in the match, you can see it anywhere from 30 to 60, 45, 19, and 25 in its first couple years. Let's go over some stats from this year's Civil War, though, John, before we call it quits here.
Mm-hmm.
With the number of people in this year's Civil War match, that moves up the number of entries to 260 since Civil War's inception in 2004. If you want to go ahead and just take the stats from here, I'll let you drive the car, man.
Oh, okay, no worries. So of those 260 entrants, 26 made their Civil War debut this year.
There were 26 debuts, not their EWA debuts, but their Civil War debuts this year.
Yeah, Civil War debuts.
Gotcha.
Which is kind of crazy. It's more than half the match. The oldest competitor was Abdullah the Butcher at 79. The youngest was Tyler Bate at 23. This is the 3rd time we've seen a 40-man Civil War as well, after having 40-man in 2015 and 2019. And like we were saying as well, that they had lots of different numbers of competitors in previous years. So it's very much like every year is its own beast. This was also the first time ever that every single current male champion has been involved in the Civil War match. And in fact, there was a moment in the match where they were all in the ring together as well. So it was, a very unique situation right there. Because as we've said in the build-up to this particular Civil War, it's only been a case of the world champion being in the match twice before this, with Sean Waltman entering in the very first Civil War back in 2004, and then Jack Gallagher when he had to defend the title back in 2018. So, yeah, very odd fact, but an interesting one, I think. And yeah, so as you were saying as well, it's very typical that most winners come from towards the end of the match, but this is only the 4th time we've had someone come from pretty early on.
Mm-hmm.
What else have I got written down?
Yeah, we kind of touched on a lot of stuff during the pod, so. Yeah, like you said. Oh, go ahead.
I was going to say, got some Al Snow facts
Yeah,
as
yeah,
well. Um, so Al Snow, we touched on the fact that he's got what is it, 27 eliminations in
yeah.
total now. Well, he's still not eliminated the same superstar more than once, which is crazy.
Yeah.
But you know, he surely must be running out of them pretty soon. But
Well, with 27 or 23 people making their Civil War, or 26 making their Civil War debut, I mean that's
yeah.
well, I guess that's
This was also the fourth time that he's entered the match either last or second to last as well, after doing so in 2014, 2016, 2018, and obviously this year. And on top of that, it's also the fifth time that he's been involved in the final four in the match, being the second to last eliminated in 2009, third to last eliminated in 2014, second to last in 2016, third to last in 2019, and then second to last this year. So Al Snow, he's always the bridesmaid, but never the bride.
I'm fine with that.
I don't know.
No,
I'm still waiting for it.
You still, well, 2021 may not be your year for it either. But yeah, as you said, Dylan has had quite a run in the EWA and in the Civil War match, getting all kinds of accolades and elimination leader. I know that deep down inside, a Civil War victory is something he would want very much, or wants very much, and just hasn't been able to get it. So I would tell him if he stays after it, he might have a chance. But man, it's such a competitive field every year, and we saw it this year as well. Jamie Noble picking up the win, having that opportunity to cash in his title shot whenever he wants it. It's going to be fun to watch going forward how he plays off that opportunity against MJF. There are a lot of stories that have a chance to be told coming out of this Civil War match, and follow-up is going to be huge as we move forward into the slams going forward and coming out of Civil War.
Yeah, it always is like a good time to test the waters and try something new as well, because inevitably with Civil War, someone's gonna eliminate you from the match, and even if it just spins off into like a match, not necessarily a feud, but like there's gonna be options coming out of this thing is the point I'm trying to make. So
yeah, we've seen it in the past, and a guy. You hope that guys like Kurt Hawkins and Goldberg and Prince Albert get a chance to build off this momentum that they've built in the Civil War match. And you always have a built-in story with whoever eliminates your character. And it's just a matter of being able to follow up and tell that story coming out of there. So hopefully messages are being sent and feelers are being put out. And we see some cool stories coming out of the women's and the men's match going forward. Don't want to keep too much or take up too much time here, as we're already at the 53-minute mark, John. So do you have any final thoughts on this year's Civil Wars?
Just that it felt like, well, for one thing, it felt like it was just really encouraging to see that amount of role plays posted in 1 week. I think everyone deserves a lot of credit for the work and the effort that was put forth last week, because not only was it a lot of role plays, but it was just a lot of high quality role plays as well. And yeah, that's not easy to do in such a short span of time, but people more than delivered. So that is an encouraging thing that hopefully, I mean, I'm not expecting 70 role plays every week, but like hopefully that just is a sign of like the activity that we can see in the weeks to come as we build to our next pay-per-view and then on to Red, White and Bruised and everything else that's coming up this year. So that's a really good positive takeaway that I've got coming out of Civil War. And it just, again, like I said before, the fact that we've got this new blood kind of stamping their mark on the EWA is just, again, really encouraging to see. And you just hope that they keep taking the bull by the horns and making the most of these opportunities that, in all honesty, they're creating themselves as well. So yeah, hopefully more of the same.
Yeah, I thought it was a really good competitive Civil War. I think there were a lot of people that could have won that matchup. You take a look at the competitors who posted 3 role plays, and really any of them could have wound up being the victor. I'm not going to say the right guy won, but I do think that you could certainly make a case for the winner being who it is, and it's an easy case to make if you went back and read their role plays. It's always tough to compare and have these role plays be competitive with each other, but like you said, Jeff and Jamie Noble, he put out top-notch work and really hit it out of the park, and I hope that he does well going forward, and I hope that he puts himself in a situation where he can build off this and really do some amazing stuff and tell fun stories with a character like Noble, which should be easy. So I thought this was a really great Civil War, and I thought Newt did a great job, and I thought everyone who roleplayed did a great job. So kudos to everyone, especially me. Did it. Especially all the people who put in all their effort this week.
Yes, I concur.
All right, well, so that's going to shut it down for this. It's been fun breaking down the Civil War match for you, and hopefully you guys enjoyed it as well. Slam, no slam this week. John, do you have something going up on this week, or are we just not doing anything?
Well, I might get around to posting a roster report, which I haven't done yet because I've just been putting it off because I hate doing those. But I will try and get something up, like in terms of stats or
we need to get these stats out there in text as well, because there are going to be a lot of people who don't listen to this, so we need to get those stats out there in word form. But for those of you who did listen, thank you for sticking around, and thank you for listening. I'm Craig. That's John. John, any final words?
Bye-bye.
I thought you were going to say go screw yourself. Nope, okay. I guess we're going to go bye-bye. Thanks for listening, guys. Bye-bye.